Good evening, everyone. I've got a couple of things I want to do in this talk, but I'm going to hang the talk around a case from this book called the Blue Cliff Record. Blue Cliff Record, for those of you who have been involved in Zen Buddhism, you probably know it. It's a collection of what we call kungans, or stories, or dialogues from the ancient Chinese teachers who really were the pivotal figures in establishing Zen Buddhist practice. The Blue Cliff Record is one of the books that gets used pretty much by all the different schools of Zen, especially the schools who work with koans, or kungans, as we call them in the Quantum School of Zen. Kungan actually means public case. So we use this as a form of practice to find out about ourselves. I want to read just a little bit from the introduction by Maizumi Roshi, a Zen master in the Japanese literature and the Japanese lineage. And he says, "The Blue Cliff Record reveals to us what enlightenment is, what the enlightened life is, and how the patriarchs and masters of old struggled with it, attained it, actualized it, and accomplished it." So I thought that was a very important thing, especially what I want to get to is, what is the enlightened life? It's a very interesting idea. What are we doing here? What are we working with? Let me read you this. For those of you who do koan practice or kungan practice here, this book is the translation of the entire case. What we work with is generally just the story itself and then questions about the story. This book is kind of interesting because it's the translation of the commentary that goes with it. And though we don't use the commentary that much, there's something in the commentary of this story that I want to get to. So let me first tell you the story. This is the 26th case. There are 100 cases in the Blue Cliff Record. And it involves a master named Pei Chang. Pei Chang is a very famous Zen master in Zen literature. He was supposedly a very harsh taskmaster. So here's the case. A monk asked Pei Chang, "What is the extraordinary affair?" Or we often use the translation, "What is a commendable affair?" I want you to think of it that way. What is a commendable affair? Pei Chang replied, "Sitting alone on Ta Huang Mountain." Hearing that, the monk bowed. Thereupon, Pei Chang hit him. So that's the story. Any of these stories are when it says a monk asked, that's a pointed question. It's not a simple question. So when he asked, what is a commendable affair? What he's asking is, what are we doing? And what is it? What is this enlightenment thing? But when I hear that question, listen to it. What is a commendable affair? What are you doing in your life? What is it commendable? What am I doing? This gets to the heart of the matter. What is this life, and what am I doing? When we hear a question like that, we probably go into our head, oh, it's commendable to work for social justice. It's commendable to be kind to other people. It's commendable to be kind to my partner. It's commendable to have patience. You know, in traditional Buddhism, there's a whole list of virtues. patience, generosity, a meditative practice. They go on and on. So conventionally, we get ideas. What is it that's commendable? And then, how do I live my life that way to live, I think this is a word, commendably? But it's all thinking. It's about 20 people in this room. There's 20 different ideas about what it is that's commendable. But Zen isn't about ideas. Zen isn't really about knowing what it is to live a good life and then following those directions. And by following those directions, I'll then live a good life. That's not Zen. We can't describe a commendable affair, but we can live it. Do you hear the difference? We can't proscribe or prescribe what it is, but we can do it. So how do we find it? What is it that we're actually doing? There's many, many ways I can talk about this. Those of you who've heard my talks before, you know I often talk about this idea of right view. Right view is the first of the 8 folds of the Eightfold Path that the Buddha set out as the means to find yourself, attain enlightenment, and help this world. So, a commendable affair has something to do with right view. Right view means no view. Right view means seeing this moment clearly. And then what? So the first thing we need to do is recognize our prejudices, our ideas, our belief system, our concepts that actually, although we think they're helping us in our life, they're actually blinding us, keeping us stuck in the box of our own ideas. So, this practice that we do, this chanting, the bowing, the meditation practice especially, we breathe and we observe, we watch. We learn about how our consciousness works, so we can see through our own rigid ideas, the games that we play with ourselves to, we think, be commendable. But really, what we mostly do is we're trying to protect ourselves. And we end up living very often from a withdrawn place. I want to read something in the commentary of this because I think it gets to the heart of the matter. He says, "Masters of our school do not idly observe how the other takes action." Remember, this has to do with the case. So this monk asked something of the master, but the master didn't wait. Boom, he responded. "Masters of our school do not idly observe how the other takes action." Here's the critical point. "The moment they are in charge of the situation and bring it into play, they are naturally leaping with life." Naturally leaping with life. For those of you who practice here, you know 3-day or 7-day meditation retreats we call Young Mang Jung Jin. That's Korean, and the translation is to leap like a tiger while sitting. So the point here is, how do we meet our life? Do we meet it passively? Do we meet it from a rigid, self-centered place of desire, greed, and anger? When the moment arises, what do we do? I've realized that I try a lot of different ways to talk about things, and sometimes I wonder in between talks, in between interviews, when I'm working with people, what is it that I'm actually trying to say? And when I read that passage, Leaping with Life, I realized that something that I've been trying to say quite a lot is speaking about the urgency of the moment. The moment is the one place that we're actually alive. It's often said, the past is nothing but a dream. The future is nothing but a dream, some idea we have. The past is fiction, because we make up what we call the past. What we call the past is not actually what happened. It's our story about the past. The future is our dream of either what we want or what we're afraid of. It's the catastrophe that lays ahead, or lies ahead, that we're trying to mitigate or control or make not happen. Or it's the wish that we have for something. But it's all made up. There's nothing real about it. The present moment is the only thing that's alive. And our job as practitioners is to engage the moment, to participate in the moment, to embrace the moment and live it. So this phrase, leaping with life, I think all of us know when we do that. We have the capacity to completely enter the moment. But so often we hold back. We lie. We cheat. We cheat ourselves. We cheat the moment. We cheat life. Staying stuck in this narrow, self-centered place. What's good for me? What should I do to get the best outcome for me? And in that way, we try to control things all the time. And in that controlling things, or the attempt to control things, because actually we don't do a very good job of controlling things. We think we have an idea of how to do it. But usually life catches up with us, and the forces that are at play are so much more than our small little minds can contain or understand, that there's a kind of futility to our attempt to control. But to prepare ourselves to be here, to be present and alive in this moment, and in a sense to unveil ourselves so that the life which we actually are can jump out, can leap out. So we have to bring all of ourselves to the moment and abandon our fantasies and really live. That's the point of Zen practice. It's not learning some good ideas. It's being ready as the moment unfolds to act, to be alive, to be real, to be fresh. These are all words for it. But I think you can feel what it's like. Even in this position of listening to a talk, how do you keep your mind? What are you actually doing now? Are you evaluating, judging, or are you receiving? And when it's time to speak, are you truly speaking? So, in Zen practice, we have a lot of practices that we use to prepare ourselves to be alive as the moment arises. Sometimes we ask, who's listening? Who's speaking? How do I know what I think I know? Challenging the assumptions that we make. In our meditative process in Zen, we're sitting, as Paul talked about tonight, we're using our breath as an anchor. Breathing in, what am I? Or as we're engaged in our lives, breathing in, what's happening right now? And not spending a lot of time thinking about it, but use your eyes. Not your idea, but your eyes. Reminds me, there's another line in here. Let's see if I can find it. This follows, so I'm going to read that passage again that I've been talking about. Masters of our school do not idly observe how others take action. That means we don't get lost in other people's games. So often we're trying to control things, and then people throw things out, and we're like little puppets that get dragged around by what somebody else puts out. But in Zen we say we don't get lost in other people's actions. The moment that we are in charge, boom, we act. We're alive. The moment they are in charge of the situation and bring it into play. Play is a lovely word there. Play. Often, play is life and death, but it's also play. They are naturally leaping with life. My late teacher, Wu Tzu, would often say, quote, "It's like coming to grips in the front lines." Right at the front, no protection. There aren't 8 levels of protection. You're right there. Urgent. This moment, right there. I'm always telling you simply to cut off seeing and hearing, form and sound, all at once. Cut off the thinking mind. Cut it. Then you'll be able to hold fast and act with mastery. Act with mastery. Practice leads to mastery. But Zen practice isn't about mastering some particular task. If it's mastery of anything, it's of our own self. So that in this moment, we can come forward. I had a long day today. There's a lot of things that happened. I could walk into this talk and the mind can say, well, I don't want to, what, blah, 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 blah. But at the moment Paul introduces me, boom, here I am. Here we are. No protection. Totally exposed. It's another way of saying it. Moment to moment to moment. Totally exposing ourselves. Putting our hearts right out there. Paying attention, connecting with the moment, and being. Not thinking, not fantasizing, not imagining, being. Before Nike said it, Zen Master Bon Soeng used to say, when you're doing something, just do it. That's what we're talking about here. Just do it. Be it. Practice is preparing ourselves for the moment. When we're in the moment, we have to act. We have to embrace it and be it. And then I often say, pay attention to the result. That will teach us something. As we observe the results of our action, we can get a feeling for how well did we read the moment. How much did we expose ourselves? Where did I hold back? Not in a judgmental attempt to criticize and judge, but just to know. Just to know. Take a look at your life. There's a phrase that says, you make, you get. What are you making? What are you doing? That's the key question of Zen practice. What am I doing now? don't have to think. You just have to watch. You have to be. We are human beings, being alive in this moment. This urgency. We can get so passive and withdrawn, thinking that what we do doesn't matter. But what we do is actually the determinant of our life. And not only our own life, but the lives of folks around us. So this practice is about embodying the moment, every moment. Question? Comment? Anything anybody wants to talk about?
So I've heard stories about Zen masters acting really eccentrically in ways that we might not consider to be even moral from a conventional standpoint. Can you?
Yeah. One of the jobs of a teacher is to blow your mind. Because our minds are so rigid. So even morality is a convention. What's moral today might not have been moral 50 years ago. We have no idea what morality will be 50 years from now. But we hold so tightly to our ideas and opinions. So done with a clear mind, the teacher's job is to blow your mind. The kind of, sometimes what you're talking about is called crazy wisdom. Crazy wisdom is very dangerous. You have to be very clear to wield that kind of energy. And the history of Buddhism in America, and not just Buddhism, but the history of our last 50, 60, 70 years, is littered with people who thought they were being oh so clear, wielding this crazy wisdom, but yet really hurt and damaged a lot of people. So you have to be very careful and clear with the wielding of that kind of energy. I've heard it said in Korea that there are two styles of teaching. There are the teachers who have students who are, let's say, situated in a temple or a Zen center, and they don't have as much room for this kind of crazy wisdom because their actions can be so impactful. But there are other teachers who don't particularly have students, and they go around and their life is more free. So it's a little more freedom style. Like there are many stories in our tradition. If you look at the back wall, the three pictures in the middle, the three pictures above the door, the one in the middle is Kyung Ho Sanim. Kyung Ho Sanim was in the late 1800s, and there are many, many crazy wisdom stories. There are stories of him having sex with lepers. Why would he do that? People who have been completely shunned, he would show love to. That's one way of looking at it. But it's a very tricky game to play. So when we take precepts, every precept ceremony we have, there's a line we use. We were given this line by Zen Master Bon. For those of you who are newer and may not know, that's the picture of Zen Master Bon up there. He's the founding Zen Master of our tradition. He came from Korea in the early 1970s, and he died in about 2004. He's the man that gave me transmission, authorizing me to teach. Why am I telling you about him? Where did I leave off? Crazy wisdom stories. Precepts, thank you. Thank you. So every precept ceremony, he would say, know when to keep them, know when to break them, know when they're open, know when they're closed. So one of the reasons he would say that, he was trying to teach us that we don't hold these teachings or precepts, which are, guides for living, we don't hold them rigidly. We use them to help us understand the situation. But in the moment that arises, we have to fit with the moment. He'd say sometimes they're like a road map When you're lost, you look at the map to find your way. But when you know where you're going, you just go. So, our teaching is to not hold too rigidly to these precepts and rules. I know when I first heard that, I thought, great, freedom. The longer I've practiced with precepts, the more I realize the value of following the precepts. Again, we need to be very clear when we're breaking precepts, when we're acting what we might call outrageously. There's a real value to it. But if our minds and hearts are unclear, if we're doing it really to satisfy our own desire, it makes a big mess. You see that in the religious world, you see that in academia, you see it everywhere. If people just follow their own desire, we get blinded by that, and we end up making big messes. But if our minds are clear, our eyes are clear, and our hearts are clear, it's actually possible to wield this moment in many ways that others might not expect. Because again, when we do that, we shock people into awakeness. And Buddha means awake. Does that make sense? So use the crazy wisdom, but be very careful. It's a dangerous game.
One of our basic teachings is being with the present moment. And the question I've lately had is this. The present moment, does it mean my environment, situation of what I perceive as outside of myself, or my feelings and thoughts? Let's say I'm leaving work and my head is spinning and I'm like full of different emotions. So what should be present to the birds that are singing around, the wind in my face, or should I be digging into myself and try to be present with the drama inside?
Yes. All of it. And then some. Don't limit your view of present moment. Present moment is a word. That's why we cut off all thinking. It's not about your idea. Cut off all thinking. Then this moment appears for you. Our minds are too small. We can't hold the present moment. The present moment right now also includes what's happening in Philadelphia. That's present moment also. But our vision doesn't go far enough. So we don't see what's happening in Philadelphia. But right now, in Philadelphia, somebody's breathing. Somebody's shitting. Somebody's walking. Somebody's crying. Somebody's driving. All of that is going on simultaneously. The present moment is way bigger than anything you can imagine. So don't limit it. All of it. Don't get lost in your idea. If you try to figure it out, you reduce it and you lose it. Just observe and be. So if the birds are chirping, your mind is blabbing, your foot is on the accelerator, and now it's moved to the brake, and there's cars in front of you, and there are cars behind you, and you're starting to get hungry, and you're angry, and you're wishing for something, and you're smelling a smell, and that elicits a memory. All of it. All of it. Don't leave anything out. Okay? Please.
Since I've been here a few times, and the biggest thing you're knowing, I own my own business, and you always try to learn new things. And
I missed that.
I'm sorry. I own my own business, and always try to succeed and learning things. And I catch myself when I'm with friends. I try to tell them that I know so much and I have this certain view of life, that's a big struggle for me. How do you, I don't want to say fight, but how do you get rid of that? Because I would like to be open-minded and just kind of like not being so my ways is the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I catch myself, especially since I've been coming here.
Yes,
So
so
I just,
we say keep a great question.
okay.
Pay attention, wonder. We say keep a don't know mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's the opposite of what you're talking about. We're always wanting to impress. We want to let people know something. You know, now we have Facebook. We want to put up really nice things about ourselves, let everybody see these beautiful pictures. And we like to tell each other about our successes and how good we are. That's all a front.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those things are true,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an attempt to make ourselves into something. But we're not a thing. We're a being. So, you've been here a few times, I know, in our talking together. The sitting Zen practice has really stopped your mind a few times. You realize in a way, the hopelessness of what you're talking about. You may impress me for a minute, but that's gone. If you're spending your life just trying to impress, you're constantly playing games. So use the practices. Ask the question. Use your sitting. We chant, we bow. We're practicing observation. So you're now at this beautiful place. You're starting to see the ways you act. What you're going to find is those actions have a momentum and an energy of their own almost. That's the conditioned mind. You've been conditioned to be a particular way. Be patient, be kind to yourself, but challenge it. Challenge it. Really? What is it? What is it now? What is it now? We're practicing and really feeling that urgency that I was talking about and clearing our eyes and minds so we can see it clearly. Okay? Does that touch what you're asking?
Most days.
Anybody else? Question? Comment? Justin?
You've mentioned clearing your eyes a few times, and like in what you were reading, it said, stop, freak exact language, stop seeing, stop hearing, and when we chant the Heart Sutra, you say no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, all the senses. What is that all about?
What do you see now?
This cushion is red.
Do you like it or not like it?
It's red.
That's no eyes. I like it, I don't like it. That's making eyes. No hearing. What do you hear?
I hear your voice.
Why do you have two ears?
I hear your voice.
That's an explanation. That's using your ears. Just reflect. That's no ears. So, no seeing doesn't mean like this. No seeing means don't make anything extra. Okay?
So, during chanting tonight, I noticed myself making extra. So, I give the chanting, I tell people how to chant and listen, So I've been having fun just trying to listen, right? Not trying to control the chant and all that. And I noticed that I was trying to control the chant a little bit, and I was listening to other people chanting and trying to not hear certain people chant, right? Because I didn't want that voice in my chant. And I've noticed, I've heard, in other schools, people will have little chanting wars. My rhythm's better than your rhythm. If your rhythm's too fast, so they try to dominate to change the rhythm and things, And I noticed, I said, oh, you're not just listening. I go, listen to the voices that you are making up a story about that you don't necessarily like or whatever, and just accept those voices and just bring them in. And then it made it so much easier. And then I was really just listening, you know. But I did catch myself in this kind of, as you would say, I was hearing, or there was that I didn't
You were
like
making
the sound.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing you're talking about. And I'm going to take it in just a little bit of a different direction, because even the instructions you give, those instructions are true, but you're in the head Dharma teacher seat. You have a particular job here. So the instructions you're giving for everyone else are not necessarily your instructions for you. Or Carrie was the Moktak master. So Carrie has a job to do while he's hitting the Moktak. I'm the teacher here, so I do have to listen and recognize what's chanting here. And sometimes I have to overpower other voices, and my voice isn't that strong, so it's not that easy for me to do. But it's my job. So your job as head Dharma teacher is perhaps different than Dennis's job. You are giving instructions to Dennis, and they're good for you too, or for me, or for Carrie. But each of us has a different relationship to the situation. So there's a general rule, and then there's what we have to do. The general rule is like a precept. Know when to keep them, but also when to break them. What's my job here? What's my relationship to what's going on? It's not simple. We can't say there's one correct action for everyone. Those of you who are here for the first time, you have probably the least responsibility. People who are wearing these brown kasas have a job to help you. That's part of our job at the Zen Center. So each of us has a different job. So any general instruction is going to be valuable, but if we just get lost in that general instruction, we might actually miss what our job is. Okay.
I want to add quickly, wearing a kasa doesn't mean we're here to help in the sense that we can't be helped as well.
Absolutely.
By,
You're helping me right now.
But my question is about marijuana. And this is
That was a jump.
I've been really struggling with since I moved out to California. It's this culture where you're using a substance to attain a don't know, or a feeling of absolute, and I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts about basically trading a substance using ritualistic practice for a meditative practice. For a Zen practice.
We always ask, why do that? What's your intention? Again, there's no rule here. Why are you doing what you're doing? How does it impact you? How does it impact those around you? What's the meaning of it in your life? So there's no one answer here. But why do you do it? That's the question. You pick marijuana, that's a mind-altering substance. Why do that? And then what do you get? Sugar, fat, salt, food. Why do you eat every day? Same question. So don't get lost in the thing itself. Why are you doing it? And how does it impact you and those around you? There's no rule. Our precept, and now this is a little different. Many of the traditional way of reading the precept is I vow to abstain from intoxicants. Our precept's a little different. Our precept is I vow to abstain from intoxicants used to induce heedlessness. So our precept is about heedlessness. It's not so much about the substance. Why do that? Okay? Anybody else? Question or comment? You just have about a minute or two. So, just to recap, we're talking about being alive. So whether it's chanting, or smoking marijuana, or eating a sandwich, or making love to somebody, or helping somebody cross the street, what am I doing right now? In this moment of doing it, am I completely here? What am I holding back? What am I holding back? Good.
What is heedlessness?
Heedlessness is unconsciousness. Heedlessness is frivolity. Heedlessness is driving drunk. Heedlessness is not being aware of the consequences of our actions. Heedlessness is like acting out of unconscious desire and not being aware of what I'm actually doing. So we can be heedless with just about anything. It's like, oh, it's just fun. You know, there was a time, I don't know why this would come up in my mind, but I was a carpenter in an earlier career, and I was working with a table saw. And I was pushing this board through the table saw, and I was wearing, at that time I used to wear t-shirts with flannel shirts unbuttoned. And I was in a good mood, and I was just, and my shirt caught on the board. The board kind of got twisted and jerked, and it kind of jerked me forward. Fortunately, there was a guard on the table saw, and nothing happened. But I recognized in that moment I was being heedless. I wasn't paying attention. I was in this kind of mood, and I was just being in this mood. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I could have lost my hand. That would have been a very, for me, terrible, but very immediate mirror that showed me how I wasn't paying attention. So heedlessness has to do with not paying attention, being kind of ignorant of what we're doing. Usually it's because I have a desire, I want something, and I let that want close my eyes and not see clearly what's happening. Okay? Anybody else? Last question? Okay, thank you all very much.